Okay, so this is where we left off yesterday, and I said that you would just be able to copy this. So take some time to write this down, and once you finish writing this down, then come back to this slide so that you can hear me discuss it. So we're talking about what the real nth roots are and what happens when n is even. And so when you're talking about when n is even, then that means you're looking at something like the square root or the fourth root or the sixth root of something. And in this case, we're calling it a. So the square root of a, okay? And we're looking at the different values of a. So when a is greater than 0, then something like the square root of 16, then we know that the answer could be 4, but it also could be -4. And you have to remember that 4 is the positive root. Okay. Then if you have something like the square root of -16, then there are no roots, meaning that at this time, there is no real root and we cannot do anything with it at this time, but we will be able to do something with it later. And then the square root of 0 is just 0. Regardless of if it's the square root, the fourth root, the sixth root, the answer is just 0. So then what happens when n is odd? And so when we're talking about when n is odd, we're looking at something like the cubed root of a, or the fifth root of a, or the seventh root of a. So the n is odd. If n is odd, then any number greater than 0, we're just going to have one answer. So that's going to be something like the cubed root of 8. The only possible option is 2. Okay? When when a is negative, meaning something like the cubed root of -8, then we have the answer is -2. So only one negative root. And then, of course, the cubed root of 0 is just 0. So this is just something to keep in mind. Make sure you have this chart, and if you need these examples that I have here, make sure you write those down as well. Let's keep going. And now we're going to look at several examples, and that will be all before you do your assignment. Okay, so first, the square root of 16x to the 8th. So I like to actually take it first and break it down into the square root of the number and then the square root of the variable, because when we look at numbers and variables separately, it's kind of easier because we already know numbers and we're already comfortable with numbers. So the square root of 16 is just 4, because remember we talk about the principal root. And then when we take the square root of a variable, what we want to do is we want to take whatever the exponent is from that variable and divide it by the index. So in this case, our exponent is 2. And even though there's nothing there, our index is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that means we're going to pull out 1x. So the square root of x squared is just x. And that may seem kind of difficult right now, but as we move into the other examples with the other variables, then it will make more sense. So the square root of 16x to the 8th is 4x. Make sure you take some time to pause and write and process everything that I'm saying. Okay, next we have the cubed root of 64z to the 6th. Okay, so we're going to separate it out. It's going to be the cubed root of 64 and then the cubed root of z to the 6th. Okay, so when we take the cubed root of 64, there are some numbers that we should automatically know cubed roots for. And so if you don't know automatically what the cubed root of 64 is, then I want you to take some time to make yourself a chart so that you can know your roots. You should pretty much know all of the square roots in numbers squared through 20. So 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared. So for cubes, you should know probably 1 through 7. For fourth powers, 1 through 5. For fifth powers, 1 through 5, just as general information. Okay, so the cubed root of 64 is 4, because 4 to the third power is 64. And then to find the cubed root of z to the 6th, we're going to do 6 divided by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. So that means that the cubed root of z to the 6th is going to be z squared and that's where this 2 comes from. Okay, next, the 5th root of 243, a to the 10th, b to the 15th. Okay, so now we have the 5th root of 243, a to the 10th, b to the 15th. And so I'm going to break it up. So I have the 5th root of 243, and then the 5th root of a to the 10th, b to the 15th. And the 5th root of 243, again, is something that we should know. So the 5th root of 243 is 3, because 3 to the 5th is 243. So then when I get to the variables, I have a to the 10th. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. So then that means I'm going to have a squared. And then 15 divided by 5 is 3. So I'm going to have b to the 3rd. Next. Sorry about that. Okay, next. The 5th root of 32, x to the 5th, y to the 10th. The 5th root of 32, x to the 5th, y to the 10th. So that's going to be the 5th root of 32, and then the 5th root of x to the 5th, y to the 10th. So the 5th root of 32, something you should know, that equals 2. And then the 5th root of x to the 5th, y to the 10th. So x to the 5th, I will do 5 divided by 5, that's 1. And 10 divided by 5, that is 2. So that'll be y squared. Okay. Again, please take time to pause and go through it at your own pace so you can process what I'm doing. Okay. Next, the 5th root of 243 times x plus 2 to the 15th. So that's going to be the 5th root of 243. And then the 5th root of x plus 2 to the 15th. So again, we should know the 5th root of 243, that is 3. And then the 5th root of x plus 2 to the 15th. Because this x plus 2 is in parentheses, it's going to be treated like one number. So we can just treat it just like it's an x. But we have to make sure we keep it like it is. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. So that means we're going to have x plus 2 to the 3rd. Okay. And then our last example, the 5th root of 4a to the 8th, b to the 14th, c to the 5th. And this one is a little bit different, so we're going to take our time, okay? So first we have the 5th root of 4, and then the 5th root of a to the 8th, b to the 14th, and c to the 5th, okay? So we're going to start with the 5th root of 4, where there is no 5th root of 4. So the 5th root of 4 is going to remain in our answer. Okay? Then we're going to look here. We have the 5th root of a to the 8th. So let's first take the 8. That's going to be 8 divided by 5. Well, 5 goes into 8 one time. And then there's a remainder of 3. Right? So if this is what we have 1 with a remainder of 3. So the 1a is going to go on the outside. So I'm going to put my a on the outside, but I have a remainder of 3. Whatever my remainder is, that's going to go underneath the radical because I haven't been able to do anything with it. So then the next one that I have is b to the 14th, right? So I'm going to take 14 and divide it by 5. So 5 goes into 14 2 times. So that's going to give me 10. I'm going to have a remainder of 4. So for my b, on the outside, I'm going to have b squared because there's 2. But then I'm going to have 4 underneath the radical because I wasn't able to do anything with those. And then for my last one, I'm going to have c to the 5th, and I'm going to do, of course, 5 divided by 5, which is 1. So then my c is going to go on the outside, and that's it. So if you have a remainder, then it stays on the inside, and then whatever is the whole number that goes on the outside. Make sure you have this in your notes, take a picture and upload, and then complete your assignment. Have a great day.